We'll examine the 2016 Clinton server investigation. This is big news tonight. A huge fight breaking out earlier today between the DOJ, Rod Rosenstein, after documents promised to Congress supposed to be delivered early this morning. They weren't handed over. Now, why were these documents not released? And just as we predicted, Rod Rosenstein and company, I'm suspicious that they're burying the report of the IG in the wake of the president's historic summit in Singapore. 2 days later, I'm suspicious. So what are the DOJ and FBI hiding? In moments, we will demand answers from the Department of Justice, which looks poised to possibly redact, delay, bury some important IG findings. Now, also tonight, we have brand new developments surrounding President Trump's upcoming historic summit with Kim Jong-un. Many around the world are tonight hopeful that the United States of America could, in fact, be inching closer to peace on the Korean Peninsula. And meanwhile, the mainstream media in this country has been rooting against the president's efforts from the very beginning. Let's see, we'll have peace there, maybe peace in the Middle East after that. We could all hope, right? And get this, one particularly deranged mainstream so-called media host actually pushing the most bizarre conspiracy theory about the president and the White House. We'll tell you all about it. Also, many in the media spinning in circles over me. Yours truly. They lost their minds last night, and we'll tell you how revealing it actually was. And we're going to show you one of the most blatant examples of fake news this entire year. And finally, good news from Alice Johnson. This is a great story. Great-grandmother, literally now experiencing freedom for the first time in over 20 years, granted clemency by President Trump. And even more good news on the economy tonight. We'll have all of this and more. Buckle up. A busy night and a breaking news opening monologue. All right, this is great news. The date has been set. The Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, he anticipates the release of his all-important report. This has gone on 18 months. The date is set for next Thursday, 1 week from tonight, June the 14th. Now, for weeks we have been predicting that these findings would, in fact, be buried and released when all eyes would be fixed on the president's historic meetings in Singapore. Sadly, I think my prediction was somewhat right, and it's only 2 days after this big summit takes place, and then, of course, this will be released. Now, what is the Justice Department potentially redacted or changed, because they've had it for over 2 weeks now? Did they alter any language? How will the American people, will they get the truth in all of this? Will they be prevented from seeing the truth? In other words, are we really going to get unfettered contents of Inspector General Horowitz's report? Now, make no mistake, next Thursday, right here on Hannity, we will be analyzing that forthcoming report, page by page, on what will be one of the most consequential days in modern history. That's 2 days, of course, after the summit. Sorry, I am suspicious, and I hopefully will stand corrected next week. Now, we do have one good development to report tonight. The Inspector General, Horowitz, is now set to testify before the Senate the Monday following the Thursday release. And, of course, all of this on the heels of what is now a nonstop effort that we have seen by Congress, by the Department of Justice to Congress, to obstruct Congress from doing its constitutional duty, and that is oversight in their investigations. And according to Senator Grassley's office, the DOJ is now refusing to make documents and at least one witness available for their oversight into the FBI's ongoing General Flynn investigation. And add to this the DOJ's constant slow walking of those documents to all the House committees, the House Intelligence Committee, the Oversight Committees. Sarah Carter will tell you all about a huge fight that took place earlier today and how the DOJ has reneged this morning on a previous commitment to supply documents that are related to the Russia investigation. The big battle, it ended up the Department of Justice now adding unprecedented new restrictions on how it plans to brief members of Congress. We're going to have more on this very important story. What we need is, of course, you, the American people, to be able to see it for yourself. And yesterday we reported on how the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, arrogantly rebuffed Senator Lindsey Graham in his letter demanding to know why the head of the Mueller investigation has not recused himself, given his numerous conflicts of interest, including his key role in that decision to fire James Comey. He's witness number one in that case, and of course he was the person that signed off on the third subsequent renewal application as it relates to the FISA warrant, that, of course, spying on a Trump campaign associate. Senator Graham is responding. Let's take a look.
Were you satisfied with the response from the Justice Department to your inquiry about whether Rod was essentially accused?
No.
Why?
You got a response? Well, you talk about a counterintelligence investigation. I get that. The question is the obstruction of justice. Is there going to be a serious look at whether or not the president obstructed justice by firing Comey? I don't know how you can have that discussion without calling him as a witness because of the memo he wrote. He's a fine guy. I got nothing against him. I think he's doing a good job. I understand why Jeff Sessions can't do this. I'm really curious as to how Rosenstein could be involved in overseeing an investigation if he's going to be a witness.
We'll have a lot more on this all throughout the show tonight, but first we have another extremely bit of important news to cover. First and foremost, the president's historic impending trip to Singapore, just days away from holding these talks with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, and they are going to talk about the complete and total denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. All of that is on the line. Earlier today, the president gave a preview of this upcoming trip. Here's what he had to say.
I hope the upcoming meeting in Singapore represents the beginning of a bright new future for North Korea, and indeed a bright new future for the world. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula would usher in a new era of prosperity, security, and peace for all Koreans, North and South, and for people everywhere. We could absolutely sign an agreement. We're looking at it. We're talking about it with them. We're talking about it with a lot of other people. But that could happen. But that's really the beginning. Sounds a little bit strange, but that's probably the easy part. The hard part remains after that. Maximum pressure is absolutely in effect. We don't use the term anymore because we're going into a friendly negotiation. Perhaps after that negotiation, I will be using it again. You'll know how well we do with the negotiation. If you hear me saying we're going to use maximum pressure, you'll know the negotiation did not do well.
If the summit does go well, will you be inviting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to the United States?
Well, the answer is yes to the second part of your question, but certainly if it goes well. And I think it would be well received. I think he would look at it very favorably, so I think that could happen. All I can say is I am totally prepared to walk away. I did it once before. You have to be able to walk away. I really believe that we have the potential to do something incredible for the world. And it's my honor to be involved.
And the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who's played a very important role in North Korea in these discussions and the lead up to all of this, he weighed in on these upcoming talks. Let's take a look.
The fact that our two leaders are coming to the table shows that the two sides are very serious. The diplomatic model used to date is different from past efforts. Our efforts give us hope that we can find real success where past efforts have fallen short. President Trump is hopeful, but he's also going into the summit with his eyes wide open. We've seen how many inadequate agreements have been struck in the past, and you can be sure that President Trump will not stand for a bad deal.
Here we are, only days away from diplomatic progress the former President Obama frankly only dreamed of. The majority of Americans, how are they responding? Overwhelmingly now supporting the president's upcoming summit. Now, all of this after the mainstream media doubted, they were fear-mongering, talks of nuclear war, and in a sad way, I think many, because they don't like President Trump and they want the Democrats to win, actually even rooting against the president's success here. That's sad for the country. Take a look.
The idea of a nuclear showdown with North Korea keeps you up at night? I would recommend deleting your Twitter app.
He is not merely being cavalier with a threat about nuclear war. He's being cavalier in a way that makes him seem demented.
These are the messages from a person who is not well, from a leader who is not fit for office.
President Trump is goading Kim Jong-un to test a nuclear missile again, to prove its reliability, to show him wrong. And fundamentally, I think it comes across as two kindergartners who are jostling each other, except that each has nuclear weapons.
Well, here's
too late after 100,000 Americans die.
After a nuclear holocaust.
Or after a million die in Seattle.
And that's where we are. This is not an exaggeration.
Trump's comments about nuclear weapons have experts worried he could literally inadvertently trigger a catastrophe.
Wow. Could trigger catastrophe. Typical conspiracy theory over there. All right, these nuclear tests so far, let's go through this. No more missiles being fired over Japan. Guam's not being threatened. The region's not being threatened. Oh, we do have 3 American hostages. Thank God they are home. They have been freed. And what you just saw was obviously fake news. We watched Kim Jong-un walk across the DMZ right into the arms of the South Korean president and the dismantling of one of his nuclear test sites. Now, because this is just the first of 3 egregious examples of fake news we're going to highlight tonight. All right, here's number 2. Over there, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC. There you go, Liberal Joe and Mika. They can't help themselves. Now, usually Mika spends her mornings pushing untrue, absurd theories about the president's mental health, with, of course, Joe Scarborough, who's now the liberal. But today, she actually ventured out on her own and floated this insane rumor.
I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, the hypocrisy is astounding because I know someone who spoke to Donald Trump recently about life in the White House, and Donald Trump's biggest complaint was that he's not allowed to watch porn in the White House. So there you go. There's a little bit of news for you. He's upset that he can't watch porn in the White House.
I bet they have those, 1-900 numbers blocked too, which must be a disappointment.
I'm not really sure, but it just sort of flies in the face of all of this.
Andy Lack, are you proud of that? Is this what is so-called news over there, 30 Rock? This is so insane, honestly, I can't even bother. All right, let's go to our third and almost unbelievable example of fake news. It does involve yours truly. Last night, right here on this program, yesterday on my radio show, I made what are obviously sarcastic remarks highlighting a clear double standard as it relates to our justice system. Equal justice under the law, equal application of our nation's laws. And I was talking about Hillary Clinton and comparing her to what she did to those that have been targeted by Mueller's witch hunt, as Mueller is requesting everybody's phones. How interesting. Watch this. Maybe Mueller's witnesses, I don't know. If I advised them to follow Hillary Clinton's lead, delete all your emails, and then acid wash the emails and hard drives on the phones, then take your phones and bash them with a hammer into little itsy-bitsy pieces, use bleach bit, remove the SIM cards, and then take the pieces and hand it over to Robert Mueller and say, Hillary Rodham Clinton, this is equal justice under the law. How do you think that would work out for everybody who Mueller's demanding their phones of tonight? Now, I'm certain the result would not be the same as Hillary's. Mueller wants everyone's cell phones. My advice to them, not really, kidding, bad advice, would be follow Hillary's, lead. Not really, kidding, bad advice. And I said, if, words actually matter, if I told them. Now, believe it or not, the insane left-wing media in this country, headline after headline, they picked up those comments. They're so dumb and gullible and had a full-on, the only thing I can describe as a fake news freakout. Look at Newsweek. Sean Hannity's advice to Mueller witnesses, bash your phones with a hammer. Rolling Stone went with the headline, Galaxy Brain, Sean Hannity advises Mueller targets to smash their cell phones. From the Business Insider, Sean Hannity suggests Mueller probe witnesses should destroy their evidence. And more fake news from the Daily Kos. Sean Hannity breaks the law on TV, telling Mueller probe witnesses to destroy evidence. And there's Vanity Fair. It goes on and on. Trump, Sean Hannity, Trump associates, you're not obstructing justice hard enough. The liberal Daily Beast, Sean Hannity, to witnesses of Mueller probe, bash your phones into pieces. GQ, they got into the game. Sean Hannity encourages Mueller witnesses to do even more crimes than they may have already committed. And I can go on, frankly, for another 20 minutes here. But the hysteria gets even worse. Let's take a look at how Andy Lack's network handled this.
Sean Hannity is now literally telling potential witnesses and subjects in the Mueller probe to destroy the evidence and hammer their phones into pieces. Now, Hannity's defenders may call that sarcasm or poetic license, but words are words. Sean Hannity lives off his words, and we all know they have a huge impact. If anyone actually does what Sean Hannity says there, they'd be committing a crime.
What Sean Hannity admitted to and actually was enticing people to do and asking them to do was to destroy evidence, which is a violation of the witness tampering statute.
No responsible person on television, no responsible so-called journalist should be advocating for people to destroy evidence in a serious federal investigation. I don't think that we'll see him prosecuted. Federal prosecutors give people a very wide berth on First Amendment-related conduct. And so unless there's something more specific to link it up, I think that this will be what we often categorize as awful but lawful conduct.
Listen, if he's out there advocating for Mueller's witnesses to obstruct justice, then maybe Mueller should speak to him and ask him, where'd the idea come from? Have you spoken to the president about this? Did the president tell you to say this?
Knowing Mueller, I think he's not going to light that fire under someone who gets free airtime every day. But one angle would be to say, yeah, look, I'm going to a judge, and I'm going to have you cease and desist this activity on national television. Secondly, I want to talk to you and see if Trump has gotten this idea from you or vice versa.
Yeah, words matter. If I advise them, oh, and by the way, it's really dumb. It's not going to work out well for you. You know, the great irony in all of this is that they're more angry that I was basically saying that everything, Hillary Clinton did it all. She did every bit of it. And by the way, I love the idea. I'd actually like to meet Robert Mueller's Mary Brand Democratic donors. I'd like to meet Andrew Weissman. I'd like to meet the guy that lost to the Supreme Court 9-0, put innocent people in jail for a year to be overturned by the Fifth Circuit, that was excoriated by judges not once but twice for withholding exculpatory evidence and costing tens of thousands of people jobs. I have questions for him. I have questions for Jeannie Ray. I have questions for Bob Mueller. Call me. Now let's get this straight. The mainstream media would put me under investigation, lock me up, for merely highlighting in an obviously sarcastic way the double standard in what I have been pointing out, our two-tier justice system. And these same people didn't get the fact that Hillary had actually done all of that. She wiped away, acid-washed her hard drive, deleted 33,000 emails that were subpoenaed. She had an aide smashing phones with a hammer and lied about all of it. That actually happened. They did all of this. Are you really that dumb? Please tell me it's not true. Now, you would think one under Mueller's thumb would be able to get away with that. Okay, just to be clear, if Robert Mueller asks for your phone, don't do what Hillary did. As I said last night, it's not going to end well for you. You won't get the same treatment, which was the point of it. Now, the media, when you think they hit a new low, they just dig and dig and dig. You can't believe this. You can't make it up. All right, one more quick news story here that the media probably hates to cover. The president granting clemency. This is a beautiful story. The woman's name is Alice Johnson, great-grandmother, sentenced to life in prison for one non-violent drug crime, okay? She's 20-some-odd years in jail. Her first day of freedom in 20 years. She thanks the president. Moments ago, she spoke with our own Martha McCall. Take a look.
The only way that I was able to make it through that time, and this is the truth, was my faith in God. I knew that one day he was going to bring me out. And I lived my life with an eye toward one day walking out of those doors a free woman. And the day that I got the news that President Trump had granted my clemency and given me a second chance in life was the best day of my life.
God bless you. We wish you all the best. And you know what? I think there's more of these cases we can find. Give people second chances. I believe in them. Joining us now, author of the upcoming bestseller, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton framed Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Okay, he's writing a book. I just found out tonight this is going to be a bestseller, too. They're going to be fighting against each other. The case against impeaching Trump. Famed Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Actually, I think the books are complementary. I would like to do events with both of you and book signings. And I think we could do like an hour debate and then you guys sign books and I have a beer.
It's a deal. That would be great. Happy to do it.
All right. Let's go. First, I got to ask you about this whole issue with me. Professor Dershowitz, you did know that I was being sarcastic.
First of all, you had a perfect constitutional right to make the comparison. I may not agree with it, but you have the right to make the comparison with Hillary Clinton. That's a constitutionally protected argument. Obviously, you did it in a sense of sarcasm, saying, look at what she did. Hey, but you won't get away with it if you don't do it. It is absurd. It is ridiculous to see the media.
I have the two best lawyers that will take me on as a client right here. I think I'm pretty safe.
You wouldn't need us.
I know.
I could find you a first-year student who would win that case.
How did these people get on air? It's crazy.
Well,
right.
I suspect that the people who were criticizing you never actually listened
to what it is you were saying. I saw this clip for the first time you just played of some guy saying a cease and desist order ought to be had against you. If that guy's a lawyer, he's as dumb as a bucket of hair. Look, the U.S. Supreme Court said in 1988 so famously that satire and parody is protected speech. Sarcasm does not constitute inciting a crime. Those people who are criticizing you for that have no idea what they're talking about legally.
Everybody at home, you just saw why these books are going to be bestsellers. All right. The DOJ, there was a spy, probably two, maybe more, and you believe you're a constitutional attorney. Congress has a constitutional role in oversight, checks and balances, separation of powers. Why won't they turn the documents over?
Well, they should. Look, I'm a civil libertarian who goes back to the anti-war movement when informers were put in the anti-war movement. They were put in the Martin Luther King movement.
Martin Luther King was spied on in a horrific way.
In a horrific way.
That's right.
And so as a civil libertarian, when you put somebody in a campaign, I want to know why. I want to see the justification. Maybe there is a justification. Maybe it was business as usual. But the American public has the right to know everything about
100%.
that and make our own judgment.
Where are the civil libertarians? This is a scary time. Listen, I am as pro-law enforcement as anybody.
Yep.
I love my mother was a prison guard. My dad worked in probation. It was a big deal. All my family, many of them were police, and two made the FBI, and that was the top of the hill.
Look, I never pass a policeman in the street without thanking him.
I do the same thing.
I always do it. Firemen, policemen.
Love them.
School teachers, people who work hard to give us our protection,
risk their
education.
lives.
I want them to know I appreciate it every day of the week.
And I do the same. All right, so they won't hand it over. Then you got Rosenstein's conflicts, and I'm thinking, they promised they would hand it over, Greg. Why?
Congress has every legal and constitutional right to see these documents. Those who are seeking it actually have security clearance, the Gang of Eight. So there's no valid legal justification for withholding it. And yet, the Department of Justice and the FBI have a long and distinguished record over the last year of concealing evidence, redacting records under national security terms. And then when we find out when they're unsealed, there was no such thing.
What I would recommend, however, is for Congress to immediately write to the Justice Department and say, do not destroy a single draft. We want to see what the original looked like. We want to see every change. We want to know who changed it, why it was changed, and when it was changed.
And the Inspector General would have it.
You cannot trust a briefing, as Trey Gowdy seemed to say. They're just telling you what they can get away with, the bare minimum. You have to see the documents themselves.
I've got to go, but your books are so complimentary, and I'm thinking out of the box in the moment here. I would love to do an event with both of you. I think it would be good for the country. When we come back, huge news. Sarah Carter will break it next, and also Congressman Ron DeSantis. Stay right there. All right, joining us now, a lot of breaking news tonight. Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis, by the way, I'm hoping will be the next governor of the great state of Florida, the Sunshine State. Full disclosure for you dopes over at MSNBC and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, let's start with you. So I was speaking with you last night, and we were speaking to other people, and we were both working our sources. And then again this morning at 7 o'clock, there was supposed to be released documents from the DOJ early in the morning, and then they pulled them back. What happened?
Absolutely. I mean, the DOJ failed to mention that when they issued a press release last night, Sean, after midnight, stating that they would turn over documents next week, or at least allow Congress to review documents next week, either Monday or Tuesday, and ask more questions about the information that they had requested on April 24th, which was a specific documentation by the House Intelligence Committee that would basically shed light on the entire Russia investigation. It's these documents that the DOJ and the FBI are refusing to turn over to lawmakers. And this is significant. They had battled with them on May 24th. Remember that meeting that they had where the DOJ and FBI were supposed to share documents with Nunes and Representative Trey Gowdy and others, and they did not. They, in fact, told them that they would not share those documents with investigators on their committee. So this has been a back and forth battle. They refused to turn them over this morning. And instead issuing a press release late last night that nobody was aware of except for the reporters. But the congressional members were left in the dark. They headed to Capitol Hill. They were waiting for the documents, and once again, they weren't there.
All right, I got some breaking news, if I can throw this at you, Congressman. This is in the New York Times. Federal law enforcement, the headline is, Justice Department seizes Times reporters' email and phone records in leak investigation. Federal law enforcement officials secretly seizing a year's worth of New York Times reporters' phone and email records this year in an investigation of classified information leaks. Excuse me. Don't we have a First Amendment here? By the way, I never thought I'd be defending the New York Times. They do suck. But wait a minute. They don't have a right to this reporter's notes, this reporter's records. Aren't they allowed to protect their sources? Do we have freedom of press? This sounds scary to me. What's your reaction?
Well, it's also against the backdrop, Sean. Nobody has been prosecuted who's actually done leaking since this administration took over. I mean, remember, Michael Flynn, that intercept was a FISA intercept. That was leaked gratuitously by somebody, probably an Obama holdover. There have been a cascade of leaks, and nobody has been held accountable for any of those things. So I need more information about what exactly is happening here. I know that there's a former staffer on the Senate Intelligence Committee that is probably going to be indicted. I'm not sure if it was working for a Democrat or a Republican, although I have my guess. But at the end of the day, you've had a series of leaks and no accountability up to this point.
I will tell you, news media, and they write this in the Times piece, consider the idea of mining a journalist's records for sources a massive intrusion into the First Amendment. Sarah Carter, we worked sources last night, and it's none of their business who we talk to, who you talk to, who I talk to. Mueller doesn't have a right to this information.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that when we look at overall, what's been happening here, look, James Clapper has now been outed pretty much as someone who the Congress believes had leaked information to CNN. We know that the president's conversations, private conversations, were leaked to the media, but that does not give the right for the DOJ to start mining reporters' telephone numbers, mining reporters' information to try to find out who was the leaker. I mean, I think they pretty much know where the leaks are coming from. Give polygraphs. I mean, if they're leaking highly classified information.
Look at their own office.
That's right. Like Mike Flynn, maybe give some polygraphs and find out who was leaking inside the DOJ or inside the FBI or inside the administration as to these highly classified leaks.
This is huge news here because, and we're just putting this together, the New York Times, even their own leadership is commenting on this. Maybe the New York Times, Congressman DeSantis, maybe they'll now realize people like Sean Hannity may have been right, and Sarah Carter and so many of us, Greg Jarrett, because we have pointed out FISA abuses, lying to FISA court judges, omissions by lying to FISA court judges, Hillary Clinton's crimes, the dual justice system in this country, one for Christian Saucier, one for Hillary, fixing investigations and everything else associated with this. And that has been our point the entire time, Congressman. How do we get to the bottom of this now?
And they fight tooth and nail to provide the American people the truth about activities. I mean, Rosenstein, as Sarah said, even just last night, they're refusing to turn over these documents. People are saying that they're briefing certain members of Congress saying, oh, this is exactly what we'd want the FBI to do. Well, if that's the case, then why don't you show the American people the documents, show Congress so we can see how good a job you did. The fact that they're not willing to do that, that tells me that there were problems from the very beginning of this so-called collusion investigation. They won't show us the Papadopoulos stuff. They won't show us the information about Halper. And you got to ask yourself, why won't they come clean with Congress?
Last word tonight, Sarah Carter.
Absolutely. What was the scope of all of this? I think what we're seeing, Sean, and I've said this over and over again, is just one small portion of massive abuse. And the American people deserve the truth because our country relies on the foundation that we built ourselves upon, and it's not meant for spying. It's not meant for weaponizing the intelligence community. Something has to be done here, and Congress has to fight even harder to get those answers.
This is the biggest abuse of power, corruption scandal in our history. You watch everything we so far have told you, it's now coming true, sadly. If we don't get this under control, it is horrific to the future of law and order in this country. Equal justice under the law, equal application under the law, the Constitution, which is the bedrock foundation of all of our laws, Fourth Amendment protections. When we come back, Ed Henry on the president's upcoming trip to the G7 summit in Canada. New details, it's all happening next Tuesday in Singapore. And by the way, we will be there. And we'll talk about it with Daniel Hoffman and Dr. Gorka. Busy news night. Stay with us. All right, before we get to a report from our own Ed Henry, I want to be very clear here what the article is about. The New York Times reporting about the DOJ seizing a reporter's phone. I misspoke, said the Mueller investigation. This is the DOJ. Now, we're going to have a lot more about this, but one thing we are learning here is that a part of it covered years' worth of reporting and information and communications with this particular reporter. And apparently this reporter had had a previous 3-year relationship with the Senate Intelligence Committee's former director of security, but said that was never a source. The standard, the bar legally is so high to get all of that information. This should be troubling to anybody that has sources, because there are all sorts of people that are sources for myself and our news division and so many other people. You got to protect those. But of course, leaking has to stop too. But this is a real problem to me. All right, President Trump, 2 major upcoming summits. And not only does he have the summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un next week, but he also has the G7 summit. That's in Canada. That starts tomorrow in Washington. With all the details, Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry. Ed, this is a pretty big story that just broke with the Times. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, look, you talk about leaks as something the president's railed against. Think back to the Obama administration. James Rosen had records gone through. There were actually more leak investigations under the Obama administration than this current administration. So there's going to be a lot of backlash about this reporter's records going through. But that is breaking as the president, as you say, is about to engage in a very busy few days of diplomacy coming up for the president, which is a big reason why he keeps lashing out
Great
at the Mueller
relationship
probe.
with, he doesn't have the best relationship with the DOJ.
No, not at all. And it's the DOJ that was leading this investigation that you mentioned of this reporter. And he's been frustrated with the leadership over there with Attorney General Sessions. Absolutely. The president also, though, lashing out today again at Robert Mueller, calling the investigation a witch hunt and tweeting that it's a distraction from his weekend trip to the G7 summit in Canada that you mentioned, as well as the mission to Singapore for the North Korea summit. The president really seems to be relishing the idea that he's going to be sparring at the G7 with traditional allies like the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the French President Emmanuel Macron, tweeting, quote, "Please tell Prime Minister Trudeau and President Macron that they are charging the U.S. massive tariffs and create non-monetary barriers. The EU trade surplus with the U.S. is $151 billion, and Canada keeps our farmers and others out. Look forward to seeing them tomorrow." Now, interesting, we've just learned the last couple of moments, Sean, the president's going to be leaving Canada earlier on Saturday than expected to get to Singapore sooner to get ready for the North Korea summit. Meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister today, who praised the president for bringing a fresh approach. In contrast, the media has given the president very little credit for bringing this peace process further than any of his predecessors. Critics pointing out it'll be very hard to get North Korea to denuclearize, which is why the president again lowered expectations today, reminded the media one meeting will not end years of tension. The president was also bullish on the chances for success, saying he has hopes that Kim Jong-un will eventually visit the White House, maybe even Mar-a-Lago, but stressed he will walk from the table if Kim does not agree to denuclearize. Listen.
I really believe that we have the potential to do something incredible for the world. So I am totally prepared to walk. It could happen. Maybe it won't be necessary. I hope it won't be necessary to walk.
Now, the president added he and Kim may sign an agreement to finally end the Korean War after decades, and we'd like to eventually see the U.S. and North Korea normalize their relations, actually have ambassadors back and forth to open up diplomatic relations. A lot of big meetings ahead, Sean.
All right. Thanks, Ed Henry. Tonight in Washington, here with reaction to Ed's report, former Deputy Assistant to the President, Fox News National Security Strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and retired CIA Senior Intelligence Officer, Fox News contributor Danielle Hoffman. I'm proud to announce that both of them will be with this program in Singapore. Sarah Carter will be there as well as, of course, the IG report 2 days after the Singapore summit. A lot of ground to cover tonight. Let's start with you, Danielle Hoffman, and the president showing strength. I'll walk away anytime. It's right out of the art of the deal. Doesn't surprise me. And I believe and know him well enough to know he absolutely would walk away in 4 seconds.
Yeah, and I think he's also doing the right thing by managing expectations. He's dealing with decades of failed policy from which we've learned a lot. You know, we've talked a lot about the sunshine policy. That was more like moonshine policy for North Korea. At the end of that 10-year period, they'd taken $3 billion from South Korea and almost $2 billion from China, increased their nuclear program significantly. And we hadn't denuclearized them, taken really many steps to denuclearize the peninsula. The president's taken on board all of those lessons learned from the past, and I think he's really well prepared to go forward with a really bold strategy for dealing with this challenge that we face. I think the challenge will be dealing with some of the other countries from the six-party talks, like Russia and China, who are meddling and not always helpful, certainly on the part of Russia, to solving the crisis.
Well, you know something? The world would be a lot better off if we don't have Kim Jong-un and the Korean Peninsula threatened by North Korea. And ending the Korean War, Dr. Gorka, seems to me to be a pretty good idea and would be good for the world. And that we have confirmed that Kim Jong-un will talk about complete denuclearization of his regime. Good for the world.
After 65 years, absolutely. Just the absurdity that this war is still really, according to the lack of a peace treaty, in effect. It's just a ceasefire. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's go there. Let's denuclearize the peninsula. This isn't a dictatorship that's going to fall tomorrow. We're not going to solve all of the peninsula's problems. But if anybody can end the war, if anybody can denuclearize it, it's President Trump.
Agreed. Does it concern you that a reporter's notes, sources, and everything the DOJ's obtained, Dr. Gorka, instinctively, this sounds really bad to me?
Yeah, I don't care whether the president's a Republican or Democrat or who the reporter works for. That amount of information being demanded and captured by the DOJ, on what basis? On what basis,
And
Sean?
the bar is very high, as we know. All right, I will get to be with you both in North Korea. I'm sorry,
Looking forward to it.
at the North Korea summit with Donald Trump in Singapore on Monday.
In Singapore.
All right, guys. All right, when we come back, you do not want to believe the mayor of Philadelphia dancing in response to a court decision that puts Americans in danger, and Dan Bongino, much more. Busy news night. Stay with us. White House tonight slamming the mayor of Philadelphia for doing a victory dance. Why? Over a sanctuary city ruling. In other words, a break the law ruling. Take a look.
A sanctuary city, yeah.
Well, we reached out to the mayor's office for comment about his gleeful reaction, and they said that the mayor was pleased about the ruling and that it was, quote, important moment for all Philadelphians. Joining us now with reaction, former Secret Service agent and NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino and publisher of Catalina magazine, Kathy Aru. Do you believe in the rule of law?
Absolutely.
Is it illegal, if you are not a citizen of this country, to cross the border without our permission?
We're not saying that
I didn't ask what we're saying.
crossed the border without permission.
I've asked you a simple question. Is it illegal to cross the border into America without America's permission? Is it illegal?
Well, people can come to this country to work, and it's not illegal if they have a worker's visa.
Without anybody's permission, no visas. Is it illegal to cross?
I don't think that's the issue at stake here, though. I don't think that's the issue here.
No. I didn't ask you if you thought it was the issue. Follow the bouncing ball here.
This is Philadelphia. They're not even near a border.
Follow the bouncing ball. We do have federal laws. You do believe in federal laws.
Absolutely, and so does the mayor of the city.
I'm going to ask the question slowly. Okay. Do you believe that it is illegal for somebody without any permission to cross the border without America's permission?
I don't find it illegal. I think
you
a
don't
person
find it. I didn't ask if you find it.
Is legal no matter where they are.
Is it illegal?
And I don't find it illegal.
You don't find it illegal. All depends what it is. It's like we were alone, but I never thought we were alone. I mean, this is what the left does. Dan Bongino. Kathy knows the law. She knows.
Kathy, listen, I love these debates, but can you just answer the question? It is clearly illegal. Let me learn you a little bit, okay?
You're going to learn
Entering without inspection. Yes, because you can't answer the question. I'm sorry.
I can answer the question. It is not illegal to be a person.
I'm going to answer it for you because you don't want to. Entering without inspection is a misdemeanor. Entering repeatedly is a felony. Sean, this is simple. Kathy, just answer the question.
It is not illegal to be a person, to be alive and living somewhere.
Whoever said it was illegal to be a person? We didn't bring
just
that.
because you're born
Nobody asked
somewhere
if it's
doesn't
illegal
mean
to be a person.
Nobody said
Hold on.
that.
We asked if it's illegal.
So you're illegal if you're in a land that isn't the place you were born. You're a person. You're a legal person no matter where you live.
Excuse me. If you enter the country without America's permission, you have broken America's laws. True or false?
Have you broken America's laws? Have you committed any crimes? Have you done anything wrong?
The answer is yes, because America has, America is a sovereign country. America has a constitution. America have laws. You probably know when you went to school, it's passed by both houses of Congress, signed into law by a president, and those are the laws of the land based on a constitutional order. Do you believe in constitutional order?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that people should obey the laws of the federal? Do you believe? Well, okay. There's another example. If I don't pay my taxes, you'd probably say I was breaking the law, right?
That would be wrong. But
if you cross the border, you're breaking the law.
They're buying goods. They're paying taxes for those goods. These are good people.
I didn't say if they're paying taxes. I didn't say that they're good or bad people. That's not the question. It's about law. And Kathy thinks it's kind of clever, but it's not. Because if you can break that law, Dan Bongino, you can pretty much say we don't have laws. And that's what the mayor of Philadelphia was really doing today. It was a little happy dance.
Yeah, notice the word games Kathy just played there. She switched the. She does this all the time. She switched the argument. Yes, you do, Kathy.
The mayor follows the law.
Sean asked you a clear question. Sean said we're talking about immigration policy and breaking of the law, which makes it in fact illegal. And you changed it to an argument about being an illegal human or being alive being illegal or what are you even talking about? We're talking about immigration
She's talking
law.
about. I can tell you. I can answer. Hang on.
Makes you
She said they're people.
Can't wait.
People. I understand they're people. We love all people.
Right.
But we are a sovereign country. Respect the sovereignty and the rule of law of America. Thank you. When we come back, incredible, nice things former Clinton saying about Trump. Kid you not. All right, besides his disastrous answer on how he handled the Monica Lewinsky controversy in the Me Too era, President Clinton, during his recent interview with NBC, also had some very interesting things to say about how his administration mishandled North Korea. Take a listen.
We should want this to succeed. We had 8 years when I was president when, because of a deal I made early, that there was no fissile material produced. I had a chance at the end of my presidency. I kind of regret this now, but I would do the same thing again faced with it, to end their missile program, but I would have had to go to North Korea. So you get rid of the missiles and the nuclear material. But I couldn't do that and finish the Middle East peace. This is important, and we should hope that the president succeeds. And we should wait and see how much can be done.
Now, he actually gave Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually, in energy aid, etc. I'm glad he said he doesn't want to see President Trump fail. I admire him for saying that part. Anyway, let not your heart be troubled, always fair and balanced, but not to destroy Trump media. Let not your heart be troubled. There she is. I have a couple more confessions to make.
Oh, God. Is this what we're going to do every night now? I don't think the country can take it.
I am actually fighting for a pardon for you. I'm going to start an online petition. I'm sorry. The media is so pathetic. Did you see what they did today? I have a stack of articles this high. Hannity is encouraging breaking up devices and acid washing your hard drive. Are they that stupid?
By the way,
Seriously.
I have a question, Hannity. When you're encouraging people to bleach their hard drives, not you, but if you were doing that, is it actual bleach? I mean, do you put actual bleach on it? Like, I don't know what you use. But
hey, I do have a question for you, a serious one. I do not like this headline in the New York Times that they took a year's worth of information from one of their reporters.
Yeah.
That's troubling. That bothers me because this is freedom of the press now, and I don't care that it's the New York Times that we both know is corrupt and they do a horrible job, but we've got to be very careful here. This is a very dangerous, slippery slope.
Yeah, I completely agree, Hannity. If they could shut down voices of independent thought and conservatism,